It's been a while since I uploaded YouTube content, so this is gonna be the first in a few years. I don't know, but I'm just hanging out in my yard here. It's still summer. It's like plus 30, and I'm making lines for the dogs for the training for the ATV, and I thought I'm gonna share a little bit about who I am and for anyone that's gonna be new here and what this channel is gonna be about for the next little bit. So basically, this one here's Tony, and I think we're having a neighbor drive by right now with an ATV. We live right by a trail, which is perfect for dog mushing. And I think in the fall, winter, there's gonna be less traffic here. But yeah, every once in a while you see someone drive their four-wheeler down here, and we are one of them sometimes. But yeah, so last time I was making some clips. I was new to Canada. I haven't lived there even 3 years yet, and I was working and helping some other people with their dog kennels. And now in 24, this is my life. I have my own dog kennel. We live in central, Interlake region of Manitoba, like more like central Manitoba. And we have 17 dogs at this point. We have our own property. And we are currently preparing to start training at some point when the temperatures drop. So everyone's been just napping, and every so often we go on walks or to the lake or to the beach or do loose runs, free runs, sometimes bike touring. And so yeah, the dogs have been back to a more active schedule in the last few weeks. That's usually how the season goes for me. I kind of divide the year in a few different sections. I start with it's always hard for me to. I'll start with the end of the last season. I'd say dog season is usually like. I feel like saying it's starting in September is kind of pretty unrealistically at this point, considering the planet is going downhill. So the new season is probably October until like April-ish. But yeah, so say like April, May is usually where my dogs after the season they get to just be loose. Lots of small, like lots of just playing, sleeping, relaxing, recouping, getting their energy back. If there's some like usually it's a lot of hard mileage. Last year they didn't really do that much, unfortunately. Oh. Yeah, so right after dog season ends, usually I let them just play, relax. It's usually the time where it's really hard to be on trails because like either like they're just wet, so like walking is not really a thing yet, but you can't really mush on them anymore. And I'm not really a big believer of doing some form of training after training season and sled season. I just feel like at some point you just have to give the dogs a break. And I'm a true believer that these animals put like 700 to over 1,000, and then the longer races you do, the lot more mileage they put on in a season, right? They just put a lot of mileage on in a really short amount of time. So I really think when you look at their long-term perspective and their like the way they regenerate, I feel like you need to give them a solid break, a solid non-harness season. That's my personal opinion. And I don't know. I feel like it's I've been doing this now. This is the third season in which it will be this way. So like I didn't see a problem with it yet, and we'll see how this season goes because the temperatures are just not dropping yet. So it's gonna be a little bit, I think, until we can actually start more more interval training. Right now we're just doing more of activities. But yeah, so April, May is usually just sleeping, relaxing, playing, massaging, brushing the dogs. If anyone had maybe an injury from this season or is a bit stiff, sore, whatsoever, that's the perfect time for all of that to heal and cure. And then comes June, July, usually it's just really hot. So that's when the dogs feel way better already. The first changing, like most of them are back to like they're just fully like they also out of shape, obviously, but that's not even like that's kind of like at least at least the body gets its natural rest, and I think that's very important. Like we're all mammals, and all our genetics are pretty outstanding, so we all have the ability through muscle memory to get back into shape quite fast. It's this, especially if we keep to a rigid routine, and that's basically the entire point of the way I train my dogs is once I start training, it's gonna be I already have the entire season planned out, and it will only change if the conditions of the weather change, right? There's really nothing else. My work schedule is right now planned around my dog schedule, which is awesome. And so I really that's really the focus, and I feel like as long as you're consistent, and if you know your dogs, especially like early season is more like figuring out, is this schedule realistic? Can everyone be pulling through? Like, is the jumps that we do in intervals and the amounts of training that we do per week, is it okay? Is it not enough? Is it too easy? Is it too hard? And so then I will adjust. But there's a few dogs that I think will need a slightly different approach to this season. And number one is one of the older dogs. He's not very old yet, but Tony. He's the original first husky, Mr. Tony. And Mr. Tony, he knows when I talk about him. He's like, I'm special. You're the best, Tony. But so he is the one dog that is usually getting more mileage every time I have trained him. And so he has had one season of, like, one big season in his life so far, and even in that team he was training with dogs that were just they were just all longer legged, bigger, so it was harder for him to keep up. But that's exactly why I believe in catering a bit to some of your weaker or odd number dogs. They're not necessarily weaker. They just need a different approach. So like him, unlike some other dogs, it's better for him to do more mileage. So he gets to check all the trails with me. I can already see that he's getting in shape. His lungs are getting wider. He's starting to build muscle. And so he's having a head start to the other dogs. But the other dogs are way younger than him, and especially the second generation, or like the first generation out of Kappa, I guess, but the second generation out of those huskier dogs that I had the ability to run that first season there, those 5, those were exceptional dogs. Or they probably still are exceptional dogs. I really liked them, and the offspring out of that and Kappa are very, very, very long-legged dogs, because those husky dogs were pretty long-legged, and now there's hound in them. So I think it's gonna be significantly harder for Tony to keep up in a team like that. And last season we were all not doing what we would have done if we were alone, but that was the point. That was the plan getting into the season, because we had a joint season. But it meant that someone like Tony just didn't fit the entire kennel, so he was not training really that much, and he was just not racing. So for him, I think that's actually a pretty good season in times of rest. So he didn't, but unfortunately, but that means that he did run last year. He did train too, just not very far and not very often. And then he was sitting lots, but that's why he didn't have a full season last season, but he had one the year before. So I think overall, like, it probably has, I think it has more benefits than it has disadvantages that he had that more of a big season rest before heading into this next season and the current one. But the dog like him just needs a bit more mileage runs. So he has been checking trail, running around, bike touring, and he's my main lead dog. I don't know if he can keep that role this season, just because the other ones are gonna be younger, faster. And but I'm doing him at my longest race yet, so I don't even think the fastest dog in lead is the most picked one. Mostly because I'd rather have a dog that I trust, and especially going into something that I've never done before. And so you just have to, I think I just have to be a bit more strategic the way I'm using him, because he just, like I said, he's one of the dogs that needs to be catered a bit different. But yeah, I am pretty confident that he can manage somehow. I'll see how it goes. But